have talked about Dave Roberts coming out swinging, saying the right thing. Kind of alluded to it already, but like you said, Dave's in his bag, man. This is possibly Dave's best season, and I think somebody on the internet was Jerry probably said it. Jay Harris said something similar. Like
Jay Harris thinks he can win Manager of the Year.
I mean, I don't know if there are better managers in the National League. It'll probably go to the Braves because Manager of the Year voting is so effing lazy. But what Dave has done to change this, I mean, to be a part of changing this culture around from what it was with the 111 win team last year, losing so many pieces, losing Justin frickin' Turner in the clubhouse, in this locker room, and having it come together to this is one of the more fun teams. It's a better team. It looks like they're playing for themselves more than we've ever seen. And Mookie Betts talked about it on the radio the other day on the AM 570 show. He mentioned after they won, I think it was last night, after they swept the D-backs there in Arizona. It's like, this is a team that plays for each other, and this is probably the best clubhouse. It's like, yeah, we're not as talented of a team as we were last year, but this is the best clubhouse I've played in really since 2018. Like, this is right there. And we know how that team worked, Apple Watch aside. We know how that 2018 team worked with Boston. They went out and won themselves a World Series. But I don't know if it all starts with Dave Roberts, but you're seeing him make the right moves more often. You're seeing, for the greater part, the right guys coming in at the right time, or the right guys staying in, like we saw with David Peralta last night in that in his clutch 2-run single. Riff on Dave, because I'm not seeing any fire Dave Roberts in the comments.
Not a lot of fire Dave Roberts. That could change in a heartbeat. But yeah, I think you look at last night, and it kind of exemplifies Dave Roberts as a manager. You look at the at-bat with David Peralta. Of course, it's Peralta versus Nelson. It's a lefty-lefty situation. Peralta, he had hit that double play to end the inning a couple innings prior where they could have scored some runs. And instead of going to Kike off the bench, you leave him in the game there. He gets the at-bat. He gets the big hit. And the Dodgers, they take a 2-0 lead, and they go on to win the game. But the reality is, after the game, he talked to reporters, and everyone thought it was so analytically inclined. But the reality was it wasn't, because he had already faced his 3-batter minimum. He didn't want to have Castro versus Kike in that situation. He thought he had better odds with a lefty-lefty match with Peralta. But what did we see there in that bat? You saw after the game, Peralta saying, "Oh, it was great that he had confidence in me." And Dave Roberts was still able to play both sides of the coin right there, saying, "Okay, I'm doing the analytics part, but I'm also giving my guy confidence." And I think that is sort of the magic of Dave Roberts. And look, at this point, if you don't like Dave Roberts, you don't like Dave Roberts. There's not going to be a lot that's going to change your opinion on him. But as far as his people skills, they're a 10. Yeah. They're elite. I've seen it with my own eyes. This guy,
I mean, you saw him at ping pong.
He's always
he's
exploding. I mean, this guy has one of the biggest personalities I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think for him to empower, he doesn't feel, there's a lot of clubhouses, right? There's a lot of clubhouses out there where the manager has to be the guy. The buck stops here, right? I have to be the guy.
Yeah.
Dave Roberts, he doesn't feel that way. I mean, he's secure enough to know that I can let Freddie, I can let Mookie, I can let a new player and Jason Hayward lead. I can let a JD Martinez have influence. I can have a David Peralta have influence. And his biggest thing is just giving guys confidence. I'm a firm believer that James Outman, he probably doesn't come out of that slump as well as he did without him. Bobby Miller, you saw the conversations they had, and Bobby Miller told us that, hey, Dave Roberts is someone he looks up to, and I think that people underestimate just those one-on-one relationships. I think you see inner relationships, I mean, you almost have to find your thing with each person, right? I think that's what he does. He finds his thing with each person.
Yeah, no, it takes a real leader of people, takes a true manager to know when he doesn't need to have all the answers. He doesn't need to be the guy to touch every single thing about the job, about the team, about the roster. Leave something to the people that are smart, that are out there doing the job day in and day out, that are playing, that know the clubhouse themselves. Like you mentioned, Jay coming out of nowhere. This is a guy with a ton of experience. He's been doing this for a very long time. He's rode the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in this league. We all know the 2016. The Cubs don't think they win that World Series if it wasn't for him hyping up that team during that rain delay against Cleveland. And And Freddie, we know this is Freddie's team. He was asked more than anybody in this offseason, who's going to be the voice in the clubhouse? Well, now Justin Turner's, you got one of those in. 19 other people got that question in with him.
Yeah.
Freddie learned pretty quick. It's like, oh shit, that needs to be me. I need to be that guy. Mookie doesn't want to be that guy. He's that guy. He's the guy in the quiet. Sir, he's the quiet guy in the background who leads by example and is going to put his arm around you when he sees you need it. James Outman, we're hearing about that. 2020, we heard about him kind of working on the side with Austin Barnes. No, Mookie doesn't want anybody to know what he's doing. But it's Dave for knowing when to hold him, knowing when to fold him. And give him the credit, man. Like this is an impressive feat from what we're seeing out of this dude.
Yeah, 100%. I think you bring up so many good points there. And I think the main one that I'm focused on is the fact that, yeah, like you said, Jason Hayward, guys like that, empowering guys like that. I mean, if you had a Sparky Anderson, one of those type of managers, that doesn't play up in a cast full of stars in Los Angeles. When you have guys you can trust that have been there, that have done that. And I think, too, Dave Roberts, like I said, if you hate Dave Roberts, that's just how it's always going to be. Yes, he has made some bad moves in the past that you have to point to saying, okay, 2019, we know what happened. Rich Hill. I mean, there's certain moves that we can point at. Do we know that those were all Dave Roberts moves? The reality is, I think we don't. I think there's certain situations. I'm not saying there's an earpiece in there and he's taking all the calls or anything like that, but I can tell you that this organization is in lockstep as far as it being a collaborative effort between analytics, scouting. I mean, all these guys, it's not like one guy just shooting off the hip, going rogue and making decisions, right? I think Dave Roberts, though, what he does at an elite level, interpersonal communications. If you don't like Dave, like I always say, you'd blame him for the sinking of the Titanic, right? And we know that the captain, Edward Smith, you have to go down with the ship. I think Dave does a good job at going down with the ship when they lose games. So I think that's something to his credit as well. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, look at other sports, right? I mean, baseball is not a sport where you play, quote-unquote, Dave Roberts style of baseball, right? Football, Sean McVay, 11 personnel. Kyle Shanahan, right? Your offense for your 49ers. I mean, those teams bring their own identity. Dave Roberts, he's not asked to do that. You don't play a style of baseball. He gets guys going. He rides the ups and downs of a season better than any manager I've ever seen. I think 100% this is his best managerial year because lots of people thought this was a transition year for the Dodgers. And what they went out there and dominated this division. I think they're going to win this division by 5+ games. I think Dave Roberts deserves a ton of credit.
What are people saying about Dave? This is their time.
Yeah, this is a lot of good stuff.
Because if we do have the Fire Roberts crowd out there, I want to know what the hell they think he should be fired for.
Well, we do have one from Nick Shrunk. He said fire Dave Roberts, but he hasn't said why yet. So to be determined why.
Like Doug says, bring your facts to the fight.